expletives.
Love different pronunciations.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone. If anybody's there, here, I should probably
Oh, Captain Al's here. Got Liz.
pull up.
Captain Al's having a meal. Well, he's going to watch the rugby.
James is here.
Yeah, so I did something. Hang on. I should have already pulled up the chat
Steve Ivy.
before. Hey, Steve. How's everything going?
Pilot Steve.
Yeah, how did the well, don't answer yet because I'm not on the chat yet. Crap. Okay.
Michael Kuipers.
Kuipers. Yeah.
Pronunciation.
Yes.
Tanya. Good morning, Tanya.
Oh, got a good crowd then. Everybody seems to like
this time of the day, yeah. Well, that's a funny expression you just pulled. Time of the day, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a funny expression.
Oh, sorry. As well, you know why I just pulled that expression. I just had a little wave hit me.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. And as the day goes on, it gets worse. So far, so good.
Are you going to rest your feet for a while, or are you carrying on working?
I'm going to carry on, I think. I have a trip that leaves on Monday, and I'm going to see how the weekend goes. And
so what was it that you were at yesterday at Acme?
Oh, a conference focusing on customer experience and things that we can do to that. Yeah, it's a couple letters and a number.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about now. Yeah.
How to make everyone feel fluffy and happy.
Yeah, and ways you can, like certain ways that you can say things, like and avoid using certain words and
like shut up and
yeah, that's a good one.
Get lost and get off my plane.
Get your feet off the furniture, you ugly fool.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay, good. Yeah,
we actually really good. And they paid me to be there.
All right. Okay. Excellent.
4 hours of pay.
And you said they had an Acme Red person there?
Yeah, they had some. I think this may have been the first one, and they do this several times a month, and they have been doing this for, I don't know, since the summer, I think, or I don't know when it started. But this is the first one. The session that I went to yesterday was the first time I think they brought in some people from international stations, and one of which was Heathrow, and this lady was there from Heathrow, and there were a couple from Singapore and Haneda, Japan, Tokyo, and some other places. Kind of interesting.
Good.
Okay, so what I did, thanks to James, he said something. Have you tried this low latency chat option in the advanced settings? And I went, let me take a look. I didn't know there was such an animal, and so I went there and clicked the ultra low latency, and that's what we're running with now. And it should mean that our chat is more real time, I think.
Okay.
So right now, everybody in the chat room, I'm going to say now, and then I want somebody to answer after they hear me say now. So ready? Now. Oh, that was pretty quick.
Wow, that was pretty quick.
Just a few seconds. Okay. Yeah, so It's almost real time. So, hey, thanks very much, James. I don't know how you found out about that, but I'm glad you did, and I'm glad you told me. So I don't know if it's affected at all the video quality or the or anything or sound quality that you're getting.
So far, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Good. Excellent. Our APG community comes through. All right. Let's see. Oh, so what we're talking about there, I think I have shingles, which is some kind of a thing that I guess if you've had chickenpox, the chickenpox virus, it lays dormant in your body, and then I think it's it's like 1 out of 3 people that had chickenpox earlier in their lives will get another outbreak, basically, of chickenpox, but they call it shingles. And sometimes it's on your neck and your head and your face, or I think more commonly on your side, and that's where mine is, on my left side, starting in my back and then kind of wrapping around the left side because there's some kind of big trunk of nerves that go around right there around your ribs. Yeah, it is sinful, Tanya.
Sinful.
Very sinful.
It's very sinful.
Yeah.
I like this. I like the interrupt.
A sinful person.
Yeah, I'm a sinful person. That's why I go to church so much.
That is why you go to church.
That's
I'll
exactly
join you
why. That's why you go.
I actually may join you there tomorrow, Jeff.
Are you?
Yeah, I better start praying.
Okay.
I don't know why.
It's too late for me.
Yeah.
Shingrix vaccine should get it. Although, Micah, isn't that the one also that I'm starting to see lawsuit, like lawyers on TV saying, if you took the shingles virus, contact us.
Have your vegetables dropped off?
Have you vegetables?
I don't know what that means.
Yes, you do. Meat and 2 veg.
Oh, my vegetables are just fine, thank you.
Suffering from lack of use lately.
Yeah, well,
They're not as crisp.
let's don't even talk about that.
Okay.
That's just not something.
So
Yes.
they're
I'm
not.
talking about your celery.
Sprouts, they don't like mangoes.
My mangoes.
I can make a good soup out of
They're
some
very ripe.
good, yeah, some good
Okay.
vegetables.
Okay, so if you were with us when we recorded part 1 on Tuesday night, I can't believe it's already been that many days ago. We kind of ran into some technical issues at the front end, and then when we finally started getting it going, we didn't have a lot of time because it was starting to get late for both Steph and I, and also those 2 gentlemen that are joining me right now, who are with Robert.
Having been up for 22 hours, it wasn't late at all. When we had a few beers after we went up.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And
a few beers. It wasn't beer.
Cracked the bourbon. Well, I had a few beers at 9.2%. Then
what kind of beer is 9.2%?
I don't know, very strong beer.
Wow, double IPAs or something?
I tried to walk home, and I'm not kidding. That journey across the bridge, the sidewalk's like 10 feet wide, and I was either bouncing off the bridge, the balustrade of the bridge, or just about going into the traffic. It was completely impossible for me to navigate the center of this sidewalk. I was just having a dreadful time. I put it down to fatigue myself. I was very tired.
Double black IPA.
Oh, okay. Captain now. Oh, bloody hell, poor Jeff. First shingles, and now his front end has gone tech. I'm not sure if my front end has gone tech. It just hasn't been used in a long, long time.
Well, we don't know then. I mean,
yeah, we don't know. It may be okay.
Or may not be.
And it's about 25 feet wide, not 10 feet. It is very wide. I mean, extremely wide.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was obviously making more sideways progress than I was forwards progress.
But you worked
5 minutes to get back to the hotel.
Well, you were on the exercise program. It was the regiment to work out that beer out of your system.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay. Yeah. The fact that I fell asleep fully clothed then has obviously worked.
So how did you get back to where you needed to be, Dana?
I had a very delightful ride with a very nice Lyft driver, and I was absolutely perfectly fine because I knew I had to fly in the morning, so I did not even push it. So I just cut myself off very early and had just a couple, and that was it. So got back to the hotel in 35 minutes, no traffic. DC, no traffic. That's usually not the same, can never be said in the same sentence, but at that time of the evening, we pushed forward, and I think got back to the hotel a little bit after 12. So
okay.
It wasn't too early of wake up, and I woke up, I think I had an 8:30 van. I think that's what it was, a 7.
Oh, you should, yeah, okay.
Did you get take advantage of the free breakfast?
Of course. It was going to be a fasting day, but that breakfast is truly awesome. So it can't not take advantage of that.
Yep. Okay.
And it's not truly free because you have to leave a nice tip. At least I leave a nice tip.
Oh, Anthony says Oklahoma now has cold, regular beer in grocery corner stores. Oh, I guess it wasn't like that before, was it? You had to go to a special, like a liquor store or a Class 6 store or whatever they call that. Limited to 3.2. I guess oh, that's great.
Okay.
Wow.
Did you go vote on the new liquor law here, Jeff?
Yeah, I voted a couple weeks ago.
Excellent.
Welcome, Oklahoma, to the 22nd century. Or is it the 21st there?
I think it's the 21st still. Yeah. Right. I don't know, unless I've been out for a while, 100 years or so.
Right.
Okay, so getting back to the show thing, we ran out of time, and we went through. We spent quite a bit of time on a very interesting subject that Alex had brought up on an earlier episode, 345, I believe, and we kind of talked about VFR patterns, visual approaches, that kind of thing. And so we spent quite a bit of time on that, and then we went through the news, and then we kind of ran out of time. Bye, Julie.
I guess Julie is leaving the house. She's going to urgent care.
Yep.
Really? Is she okay?
Yeah, she went a couple weeks, about a week and a half ago, and her chest is all congested. I'm a little hoarse now too. I went out and fly one trip and I get sick. So, good day to be remote.
Yeah. Okay. So we finally came up with this time frame to do the rest of the show. So it's going to be roughly about an hour, and that should give us a normal show when I put the two halves together.
Never a normal show, Jeff.
Well, it's never a normal show. You're right.
It's definitely not done by normal people. Sorry.
Yeah. True. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the button that says or plays the feedback bumper, and then we'll jump right into the feedback.
Cool.
Sounds
And
good.
then, or should we? Yeah, let's just do that, and then we can. I guess we don't really need to do any more catch up for this show, or I guess we could do some feedback and then do a little catch up, and then do plain tales, and then whatever time we have left, we can.
Well,
more.
We already kind of did all that from the show. Kind of.
I know,
weird.
but then things have happened. That was like Tuesday night, so now it's Saturday morning.
I've got to meet up on Monday, possibly.
Yeah.
And I need to start just getting the word out about a Berlin meetup.
Yeah. And so is that on Tuesday? I'll try to get this thing out as quickly as possible, hopefully by the end of the day. So, or tomorrow morning.
Okay.
All right. If I can just figure out how to play what I need to play here. Never done this before.
Captain, incoming message.
All right, let's start with, let's first do this. We have to admit something. Although to you listening to the audio podcast right now, oh, wait a minute. That was just a rehearsal.
I thought so.
We didn't do our recording stuff and clapping and all that kind of stuff.
My recording stuff's recording.
Okay. I need to bring
mine is as well.
Okay. I don't know what happened to my clacker. Clapboard, whatever you call it.
Left it with your vegetable.
You're missing. You forgot about your clap.
Well, might as well have the. Well, never mind. Recent. Sorry, folks. I should be much better prepared than I am. No, that's not playing for some reason. I mean, it's playing, but it's not recording. Let me try it again. Back to edition. It's on default.
No, Robert, they're not. Really wasn't your fault initially, anyways.
Is this could be Robert's fault right now?
Yeah,
What we're
could be.
experiencing.
Yeah, I'm sure it is
I can
personal.
blame it on. I'm not getting it there. Huh.
Because it was his fault because he had some glitch with his recording equipment, and it's a very suspicious coincidence that that's the problem you're having.
There we go. Mine is more of a, because my recording doesn't really interface with this, so
We have no idea what you're pointing at.
I know with with the Hangout, it doesn't interface with a Hangout. It's like a separate thing. It doesn't go. There's no throughput through the recording. The way I have it set up, anyway. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the record button. It looks like it's getting the feed from that channel. There we go. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right.
I won.
Good for you. You won.
Do I get a prize?
No.
You do.
No.
There it is.
I get the clap. Thank you.
You get the clap.
It's a very non-energetic, very small crowd.
Mm,
Oh, there you go.
Wait, here's a better one.
absolutely. This is the mug to have.
That's better.
Yay.
Okay, now, where were we? We were over here. And we're going to push this button right. I'm not going to.
You did say 1 hour, right?
Yeah. Well, the actual recorded part.
I'm just making funny. I'm glad I don't have to be anywhere until 4:30 today.
Captain, incoming message.
Okay, now, due to the magic of podcasting, we were last recording on Tuesday evening. I was in Birmingham, Alabama, and Captains Dana and Nick were in Washington, D.C. with Robert Fairbairn at his studio. And we kind of ran out of time and decided that we would finish the rest of the show at some later date. And this is the later date. It is now Saturday morning, what day? The 3rd of November. We're in a new month, actually. And so that's where we are. We're going to continue with the show and start with some feedback. But before we do that, let's just quickly catch up with what has happened between Tuesday night and Saturday morning for everybody. Captain Nick, how you doing? You recovered yet from Tuesday night?
Yeah, I recovered before I got airborne and flew home, but I have to say the flight home was a bit of a trial. It's a long night flight, never very nice. And London was a pretty awful weather, heavy rain, showers, wet, and gloopy and nasty. But we got in all right. My lovely first officer did a great job. Anyway, since then I've done not much, but I am trying to tee up a little meet up with Steph, who is, of course, we know running her marathon on Sunday. Now I get into New York on Sunday. It'll be too late for me to see Steph finish the run, which is a crying shame because I land quite late. But the next day, we are hoping to get together for brunch. So that'll be Monday morning. So I don't know what time brunch is, somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock perhaps. And it'll be somewhere around Manhattan, but we haven't decided where yet. So time and place TBD. We will obviously post something in Slack when we've decided, and I'm leaving it very much up to Steph as to how fit she feels, whether she wants to make the journey. And in fact, it depends to a certain extent where she's overnighting after the marathon. So that's a possibility on Monday. And just a little bit of notice, I'm heading for Berlin at the end of the month. I plan to take my lovely wife out there for a few days. We hope to visit some of the Christmas markets in Berlin, which are kicking off at the end of November. And I'll be staying with one of our lovely listeners, Tillman, in the Circus Hotel in Berlin. And of course, he has that fabulous little microbrewery right next door to his hotel. It's all part of the same thing. And we were thinking about having a little meetup for any of our listeners who happen to be in that corner of Germany or anywhere else if you fancy a trip into Berlin. And the best day is probably going to be Tuesday, the 27th of November. So if you happen to be available or in Berlin on Tuesday, the 27th, probably I'm guessing evening. We haven't really discussed the time, but evening will probably be best for most people. Then we're going to get together in the Circus Brewery and we're going to have a few beers because I've got my magic tankard, which apparently fills itself up, which Tillman gave to us a couple of Farnboroughs ago when he made the journey all the way over from Berlin to Farnborough to meet us. What a lovely bloke. What a lovely time we had chatting to him. And I'm really looking forward to remaking his acquaintance when we go over to Berlin. So just thought I'd mention that and perhaps people can pop it in their diaries.
I have not yet had a chance to use my bottomless tankard. So one of these days.
Yeah. Or your tankardless bottom.
Yes. Not sure what that means, but yeah, right. Very
Now,
good.
is it my imagination? Is Nick kind of fading in and out muffled?
It sounds to me like that as well.
Okay.
So it's not your imagination.
All right.
Well, I have no idea why that is.
It's probably a bandwidth thing.
Okay, I checked it earlier. I was 11.
Well, I don't know exactly what's happening there, but it's kind of fading in clear, very clear audio, and then kind of a little bit muffled, and then clear again. So,
Okay. Do you want me to reconnect or something?
I guess we can try. Hope, Liz, you're putting the clock on pause here. I think we started around 20.
Okay, well, I'll just disconnect from Hangout and reconnect.
See if that helps.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Yeah, I was kind of like, it's not optimum, but I didn't think it was too bad, so that's why I didn't say anything about it. But maybe this will fix it.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Back again.
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to be any better. We'll have to wait and see, I guess.
We'll start talking.
And Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper. Now, if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper, where's the peck of pickled pepper Peter Piper picked? She sells seashells on the seashore.
Sounds it does sound better. So
okay,
maybe that did the trick.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now back to the show. So Dana, you were also up late on Tuesday evening, and you made it back to your layover hotel and the rest of your trip. How did all that go?
Well, after a wonderful evening by our wonderful host, Robert, I made it back to the hotel and then flew 4 legs on, what would that have been, Wednesday. And then on Thursday, finished 3 legs, even despite the bad weather here in Atlanta. Made it back in pretty much actually ahead of schedule, about 20 minutes ahead of schedule. So I don't want to give too much away on that because I'm planning on, as long as I have some time this week, recording a
crew log.
Yep. So that way, give some extra information to our patrons out there. It was a good trip. I had an excellent FO. He's a very sharp helicopter pilot from the Army, which is rare. We don't have a whole lot of Army pilots that I've ever with.
You mean it's very rare to find a sharp one?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, well, if it sounded like that.
I think AG from Opposing Bases is going to be writing you an email.
It's not what I meant at all. What I really meant is that we don't have too many Army pilots at the Acme.
That's what we kind of figured you meant.
Yeah, well, I said it, I guess, incorrectly, and made my poor FO sound not well. My FO good, but the rest of the Army pilots not so sharp. I get it. Oops.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. It wasn't. Oh God, no! I can't. I think of his name.
Gary Donato. Yes,
he was an Army guy, right?
Yeah, he's an Army guy as well. So, but I can't think of any other guys I've ever flown with that are Army.
Yeah, I think I've flown with just a handful over the years.
Very, very few. So he is. He was a pleasure to fly with. New guy, only has a little over 100 hours at the company, and did a really good job. Was very much like a sponge. He wanted to learn as much as he possibly could, and was trying to apply different ways of flying the airplane, like you and I can do, Jeff, versus just flying it via VNAV.
Mm-hmm.
And I also encourage him to click the autopilot off and fly a little bit with his hands versus just using the autopilot all the way down. So did a great job. Very proud of him. And I've actually, after the show, I'm going to sit down and I have to do the online review in our system, because it's requesting that, because he is on probation. So a pleasure to fly with and a pleasure to talk with. So that's about it on that. And then came home Thursday and haven't really. Yesterday, what did I do? Yeah, I don't even remember what I did. I did all types of errands. I went to the chiropractor because my back has been killing me ever since I did that stress test on Monday. They got that treadmill way up in the air, like 18 or 20 degrees up. I was at pretty much at a full run to get my heart rate high enough. I guess it shows I'm in decent shape.
Yeah.
So it took me, I think, 10 minutes to get it all the way up. That didn't sound very good. to get my heart rate all the way up.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds like you need one of those little blue pills, mate.
No. But in doing so, I tweaked something in my back, and I've been in pain ever since. So I went to the chiropractor yesterday. I met up with a really good buddy of mine for lunch in honor of his birthday yesterday, and now I'm here doing the podcast. And I started Liz just said in the chat room, no wonder Julie's at urgent care. Oops. Yeah. So anyways, a pretty good week, and I will fill in a little more on the actual trip and go through a lot more detail when I do the crew log.
Okay. We look forward to that.
Yeah.
And let's see. For me, I finished up my trip. The next day we were in Madison, I think. Yeah, Madison, Wisconsin. I met up with Chris Ott. Didn't record anything, but he picked me up from the hotel and took me to a barbecue joint in actually very close to the Madison airport. And we had a wonderful late lunch and spent a good part of the afternoon together just talking. It was great. And so thank you, Chris, for driving he lives up near Oshkosh and drove down to Madison to meet up with me. So that was a great time. Thanks again for that, for treating me to a wonderful barbecue lunch. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me as well. Came home and attended an Acme Airlines conference yesterday involving multiple divisions of our company, and it was a way for us to enhance our customers' expectations and experiences while flying on our airline. So that was really nice to be able to meet up with people from all the different divisions of the company, and how we kind of interact and interface with each other, and how we depend upon each other for this operation to be performed smoothly. So anyway, that took me all day yesterday, but that was definitely worth it. Okay, I think we're all caught up. Oh, Steph, as Nick just mentioned, is in New York, and she'll be running the New York Marathon tomorrow morning. So
How many is that this year so far? Is
I
that
don't know.
3?
Probably. I don't.
I know she ran the Boston Marathon. She ran the Chicago.
Mhm.
No, she did not run the Chicago this year, did she?
No, I think she did. Yeah,
She
she
did.
was in
Oh, yes, she
Chicago.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Chicago, New
got a
York.
personal best at Chicago.
Mhm.
So that's definitely 3 that I can remember for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, we lose track. She runs
It's
so many.
amazing.
And all those 5Ks and other runs she does on top of everything else.
Yeah, she did the Charlotte one last week, was it? That she did her
Yep.
personal best as well.
Yep.
Amazing.
I don't know what she's running from, but we hope that she works all that out. No, I'm just
Amazing.
kidding.
Absolutely, positively amazing.
Yeah, she is. So good luck, Steph, tomorrow on your run. Okay, so now let's get into the feedback. And let's start off with item 2, Chris. And Captain Nick, why don't you go ahead and take this one, sir?
Okay, right. Let's have a look.
Okay.
Item 2. So this is Chris saying, hello, Jeff, Steph, Nick, and Dana. I'm Chris from Cambridge in the UK. Nice place. Long-time listener, patron of the show, second-time sender of feedback. Well, send us some more, Chris. I'll make this fairly quick as my wife thinks I'm cleaning the house. Well, nice one. I was following a story here in the UK recently where a 15-year-old girl purchased a sandwich from a Pret a Manger coffee sandwich chain we have here in the UK and probably elsewhere in the world. Unfortunately, the sandwich contained undeclared sesame seeds baked into the bread, and she had a severe sesame allergy. Cut to the chase, she boarded a flight after consuming the sandwich and died on board. A very sad event. What interested me, however, was that during her inquest, the coroner slated British Airways cabin crew for not using a defibrillator, which was on board during the approach into Nice airport, for reasons which I'll copy from the relevant news article, and that's below. So BA. This is the little bit that British Airways said. BA head of cabin crew services, John Harris, said it was a formal requirement of his training to ensure that cabin crew were in a position on landing so they could get passengers off the aircraft in case of an emergency. He said, without sounding harsh, the coverage of doors takes priority. There were only 5 cabin crew on that particular flight, and the aircraft had 4 sets of doors, totaling 8, and 1 cabin crew member was out of action. So we literally had the minimum number of crew to cover those doors. BA flight attendant Mario Ballestieri told the inquest it would have been too dangerous to get the defibrillator from the other end of the aircraft. So Chris carries on. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on this. Whilst the crew obviously have very specific roles to play during approach and landing, I read this article struggling to believe that it would have been completely impossible for one of the junior cabin crew members to move from their position for 20 seconds to grab the AED and pass it to the junior doctor who was attending to the girl in an attempt to try and give her the best possible chance of survival. Even if having gotten to that stage, it was unlikely anyone was going to be able to bring her back. I don't know anything about cabin crew procedures and regulations. I wondered, Nick, whether this incident had been brought up in conversation at Acme Red between you and any of your cabin crew. It would have been interesting, or it would be interesting to hear all of your perspectives. And Steph, from a medical point of view, sadly, she's not available today. But if someone has gone into cardiac arrest from being unable to breathe through anaphylaxis, is it even possible to resuscitate? It must have been exceptionally difficult for the cabin crew to sit at their positions, watching this girl die in front of them and her father, knowing that the rules prevented them from moving and providing assistance during a critical phase of flight. A completely horrendous situation for all involved. As for me, I've been working through my PPL recently. I've completed both solo nav flights, and I'm just waiting for the weather to pick up so I can go on my QXC qualifying cross country at a guess, which for me will be Cambridge to Northampton Sywell, onwards to Peterborough, Peterborough,
Peterborough.
according to according to Chris
That was
pronunciation
obviously for
guide.
me.
Peterborough.
Peterborough, yeah, Connington, and then back to Cambridge in one of the club's 172s. Fingers crossed, I'll get that done this week. Then, assuming I make it round okay, it'll be time for my skills test. Cheers, blue skies, etc. Chris. P.S. Got another couple of bits to send in that crossed my mind recently, but we'll send separately. So we look forward to hearing that. Right. Now, the reason I specifically wanted to cover this one, Jeff, was because I spoke to at length to my senior cabin crew member on the return flight from Washington, and sort of put him in the same scenario. Lovely bloke, Italian called Riccardo, and he said that the cabin crew have done their best to find out through various means what went on during the flight. I haven't seen any formal incident report, and they haven't had anything officially circulated. So this is all what we would term galley FM. So, you know, the cabin crew of all airlines, you know, they have a lot of ways of finding out what happens. Not all of it is, of course, accurate. So galley FM can be just nothing but gossip. But anyway, he said that the thing that surprised him was that they didn't let the doctor know that they had a defib on board. They had decided that there wasn't going to be time to bring it out and use it, so they didn't bother letting him know. So even if the cabin crew had been required to be at their doors, the doctor wouldn't have had access to it. Now, I know these machines are simple to use, but certainly, and I can only now go by our regulations and not by the airline involved BA. And we're not allowed to allow, we're not permitted to allow a doctor or medical volunteer to use the defib on board. Not because it's particularly complicated, but because of the regulations involved in when you can actually shock or not. And here there comes that dreadful term health and safety, because there are certain periods during the flight where the risk of shocking the surrounding people as well as the patient are so high, because it might be there might be turbulence during the landing phase. The aircraft moves around a lot, and it would be very easy for someone to stumble over the patient just as you were shocking them, and you could end up stopping someone's heart who was just trying to assist at the same time as you're trying to start the heart of someone who is in cardiac arrest. So that is just one of the reasons. We're also not allowed to use it during a phase Cat 3 auto land, because of the potential risk of that high voltage upsetting the rather delicate systems we use to auto land the aircraft. But I don't think that was the case here. But certainly our regulations on our aircraft prevent you from using the defib with the seatbelt signs on during the landing phase or during the taxi phase. But we discussed the scenario, and of course it's very easy in the cold light of day when you thought about it to come up with an idea of what you would do. But Riccardo said, he personally said, to hell with the regulations. I would have stayed with the patient. I would have accessed the defibrillator. I would have used it in a safer moment as I could if it was advising a shock, because that was obviously the last chance. Now, without Dr. Steph here to advise us as to whether that defibrillator would have had any meaningful effect, we can't be sure. But of course, anaphylaxis usually affects the patient's ability to breathe. And of course, without oxygen going into the lungs, it doesn't matter whether the heart's going and pumping the circulatory system, without oxygen there and available. And sadly, the death is almost inevitable, because the brain needs so much oxygen. When eventually runs out, it's going to shut down. Eventually, it'll cause death. Now, It's such a difficult situation, this, and it's very hard to double guess. And I've no doubt the crew involved will be having dreadful thoughts of what occurred on their aircraft for the rest of their lives, let alone the family involved and everyone else who this story has touched. So I really do try and treat this particular incident with a huge amount of sympathy for everyone involved, because it obviously didn't go well. But that was the thoughts of our crew. Now, I don't know if you have any thoughts from the way your system works.
No, I think that that's pretty much in line, as far as I know, with the way things are. Our policy is at Acme. What do you think, Dana?
Yeah, I would think that it's a judgment call at that moment, and it's a regulation issue, but sometimes you just need to look past regulations in life and death situations. So,
Yeah.
I can see the flight attendant's point, because you've got a whole aircraft of full of people as well that you have to be worried about their safety. But unless there's an immediate threat to the safety of the aircraft and in the entire um, passenger load, then I would tend to agree that maybe something should have been tried. But we can Monday morning quarterback it all we want. At the end of the day, you did say something that Dr. Steph is not here, but anaphylaxis is progressive and probably may have been a mute point anyway. So we don't know.
The one treatment, of course, that can give relief is an EpiPen. Yeah, and the patient had her own, and there was one on board, and they were both used. Now, what most medical experts, and certainly the cabin crew who are not medical experts, were unaware, was that they should be used in separate muscles. So I think they both went into one leg. The big muscles on one leg, and because of because of the way the adrenaline is absorbed, I am informed by Ricardo that they've discovered and are now teaching that you should put a pen in each leg, because perhaps putting them both into one leg just doesn't allow from the adrenaline to get into the circulatory system well. And also, most EpiPens seem to be a relatively short needle, and apparently tests have shown that the needle needs to be a little longer to have a proper effect. And also, they do time out. They time expire relatively quickly, and it's quite common for people to carry them around for a much longer period than they're really useful. So that all came out of the inquest, apparently. I haven't looked it up personally, so I'm relying on third-party information here, but that all adds to it. If the adrenaline had worked properly, then of course the defibrillator might have been a real option to bring this young lady back to life, but as it was, sadly, nothing seemed to work.
Yeah, so I think we're all in agreement, and it's a terrible situation, obviously.
And so just a quick technical pause here. Everybody's saying that, or some people are saying that we're having trouble with dropouts and everything else. And I suspect it's because we're using the ultra low latency stream for the almost real time interaction with the chat room. And apparently this experiment has not gone well. I suspect that that's why we're experiencing that. And it looks to me like I cannot change this in midstream. I'm on the advanced settings page, and nothing I'm clicking here is having any effect at all. So do apologize for that.
Oh, well, we'll just have to press on, and you can use the recordings if necessary, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, everything I'm getting is fine.
Okay, super.
So, that is the good news. It's just that the folks in the chat room, while they're getting real-time audio, it's not really the reason. I think that in the past there had been a delay of 25 seconds or so, is so that what they were getting from us live was being buffered, and then you don't have any problems with dropouts and hangups and that kind of thing. Now, so I suspect it might have something to do with those of you who have maybe not super high bandwidth. It cannot keep up with the live stream. Those of us who are more fortunate and have higher down bandwidth are probably not experiencing these issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does
makes a lot
to
of
me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm hearing you guys very clearly.
Everything is real time for me. I'm not hearing any. Just earlier on, a little bit of going in and out with a little bit of muffly sound from Nick, but ever since you rejoined the stream, Nick, it's been fine.
Okay, super.
So, yeah, I do apologize to those folks that are experiencing the dropouts, and perhaps maybe next time we'll just put it back to where it was. Just have the
Well, the good news is it's a short show today, so
Yeah.
it was a really good opportunity to go ahead and give it a try.
Yeah. Okay. And Chris, congratulations on your PPL. And let's see, he sent this in on the 20th of October. So by now, I'm assuming that he has knocked out that QXC and is perhaps maybe even has finished his skills test. So
Well, I hope
congratulations
so.
on that.
Weather's been pretty reasonable last couple of weeks, so fingers crossed for you.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
All
Maybe
right.
he'll write in with some feedback and let us know how he did.
Absolutely. And I think that he said he is going to do that. So,
Excellent.
all right. With that, I think it's now time for the best part of the show. And of course, everybody knows it's the old pilot's plane tales. And this episode, or this week's episode, is, well, I'll let him tell us.
The old pilot's plane tales. He flies east, flies north, flies west, flies undone. There were periods during the First World War when the average life of a pilot was measured in days, and their time in the air by a handful of hours, assuming, of course, they completed their training without killing themselves, which were about the same odds you got from spinning a coin. So anyone who volunteered to take up the challenge of climbing into a flimsy kite-like structure of wooden wire covered with painted canvas and powered by a primitive and unreliable motor that often only had two settings, on or off, was, in my mind, a hero even before they first tried to get airborne. Those gallant young men often took to the air to escape the awful conditions, the death and destruction, gas, disease, and torment that was their life in the trenches. They fondly imagined that a life high above the stinking foul war below would be clean and brave, man against man in modern chivalrous combat. Perhaps that was in the mind of a 22-year-old Lance Corporal Johns, who had served in Gallipoli and then on the Macedonian front in Greece, but who was recovering from malaria in hospital. Johns was an Englishman born towards the end of the 1800s in Hertford to a modest couple. His father was a tailor and his mother the daughter of a master butcher. Christened William Earl, the Earl coming from his mother's maiden name, he had a happy upbringing, attending a local Hertford grammar school. Here he became part of the school's cadet corps, and where he excelled at rifle shooting, despite calling his time with the cadets a silly game. In later life, he commented that none could guess that within a few years most of them would be doing these things in grim earnest on the war-stricken fields of Flanders, or that before the First World War was over, nearly a third of them were to die on that same battlefield. William was keen to enter the army, but when he left school in 1907, his father arranged for him to become articled as a surveyor. Completing his apprenticeship, he was appointed as a sanitary inspector in Swaffham, but despite any lingering waft his work may have left on him, he walked out with the local vicar's daughter, and they eventually became married. Denied the chance of joining the regulars, William joined the Territorial Army in the King's Own Royal Regiment, the Norfolk Yeomanry. However, when war was declared on the 4th of August 1914, William left the shores of England to serve as a machine gunner alongside the Anzacs during the disastrous Gallipoli campaign. When they finally stole away from their trenches on the peninsula in the middle of the night, they left 250,000 dead men behind, with many more who were maimed physically or mentally. After contracting malaria during his next campaign in Salonika, one of over 63,000 men to do so, he was in hospital recovering when he had an epiphany and decided to join the Royal Flying Corps. It seemed to me, he said, that there was no point in dying standing in squalor if one could do so sitting down in clean air. Commissioned as a second lieutenant, Johns began his training at No. 1 School of Aeronautics at Reading and the aerodrome at Coley Park, where he learned his trade as a pilot in a Maurice Farman Shorthorn. His first posting was as a flying instructor. There are many astonishing tales of death and disaster from these times, and Johns himself had a number of spectacular crashes and forced landings from failed engines, one on his very first flight. He once wrote off 3 planes in 3 days due to engine failure and must have destroyed over 10. Had he been a German fighter pilot, that would have made him an ace. In July 1918, he was posted to No. 55 Day Bombing Squadron to fly the de Havilland DH-4 heavy bomber out of Anslot near Nancy in France. They were nicknamed Flying Coffins because the petrol tank was between the pilot and his rear observer and a good target for enemy aircraft. He didn't last long before coming to grief whilst flying in formation on a bombing raid to Mannheim. Johns, together with his rear gunner, Second Lieutenant Amy, were hit by anti-aircraft fire and their fuel tank holed. Forced to drop out of formation, they were easy prey for a dozen or so German fighters, and their aircraft was shot to pieces. Amy was killed, and Johns had his goggles smashed by bullets before being wounded in the thigh. Eventually, his engine was hit and stopped, spraying petrol vapor everywhere. Luckily, the flames held off, and Johns crashed in a German field, passing out. When he came to, he managed to clamber out of the wreckage, but he couldn't get Amy's body out. Captured by local Germans who had witnessed the recent bombing of a Sunday school, he was given a rough time until the pilots who shot him down came to rescue him. After that, he was treated with great camaraderie, but apart from a couple of escape adventures, he remained in captivity for the rest of the war. He returned to his family on Christmas Day 1918, much to their astonishment, as he had been listed as missing, and until he walked through the door, they all thought he was dead. He returned to the active list in the newly formed Royal Air Force and promoted to flight lieutenant, joining the Inspectorate of Recruiting in London's Covent Garden. It was here that he rejected the application of one John Hume Ross, who wanted to join the RAF as an aircraftsman. To William's amazement, higher authorities stepped in, and aircraftsman Ross, or how he is better known, Lawrence of Arabia, was permitted to join after all. But that's another story. When William's commission came to an end in 1927, he started a career that turns this story into something more than a tale of a brave but unremarkable pilot of the First World War, into something rather special. Being a bit of an artist, William started making a living by selling his work to various magazines, such as the Illustrated London News. He specialized in aviation art, and, with a growing reputation, worked for the magazine Modern Boy, not only painting but writing a few articles. Credited as our aviation expert, soon his byline became Flying Officer Johns. A few books followed, and William was invited to become the editor of a new magazine, Popular Flying. As part of the very first edition, the new editor wrote some authentic flying stories about the war and decided to create a fictional pilot whose adventures the readers could follow. The chap that William invented was called James Bigglesworth, better known as, and later to be recognized in just about every corner of the civilized world as, Biggles. Before long, a collection of the magazine articles were assembled into the first Biggles book, The Camels Are Coming, and the flying hero that so many of us know and love was properly born. Initially authored by W. E. Johns, before long William gave himself the pen name we are more familiar with by adding an honorific to become Captain W. E. Johns. Peppered with the sort of exclamations that we all mimic from time to time, like top hole, grand, good gracious, by Jove, cripes, infernal damnation, and such. The books were filled with the daring do that all boys of the time loved. Before long, he had taken on a few chums to share his adventures. The Honourable Algernon Lacey, a cousin, and better known as Algy, and Ginger Hebblethwaite, a runaway teenager from Yorkshire who Biggles recruits into the team. Other characters included Lord Bertie Lissy, who flew with a hunting horn and a monocle, Tug Carrington, a boxer, Flight Sergeant Smythe, his mechanic, Colonel William Raymond of British intelligence, and Biggles' greatest opponent, the dastardly Prussian Erich von Stalhein. Biggles starts off as a teenage fighter pilot, or scout pilot in the vernacular of the time. He joins the RFC underage, having sort of lost his birth certificate. He represented a very British hero, growing from a slightly hysterical youth prone to practical jokes to a calm, confident, competent leader, combining a thoroughly professional approach to flying with a gentlemanly air. Biggles progresses through both wars and beyond, being given many missions by the military and British intelligence before finally working for the Special Air Police. All told, there were to be 101 Biggles books, although the debate is still ongoing, but Captain W. E. Johns wrote others too. The demand for popular flying, with Johns as editor, was heavy from the very first issue, and the magazine remained highly successful. He may have had little journalistic experience, but he had a natural flair, and in his editorials he was not only informative, but prepared to be outspoken and politically controversial. His writing generated some criticism and even pressure from the government, who were adopting a conciliatory approach to German rearmament. The magazine, however, established itself as a most popular aviation publication, both here and in America. The quality of the writing, the controversial content, and so on marked John's editorship. He even commissioned an article from Hermann Goering, a member of Baron von Richthofen's flying circus and an ace, having shot down 22 aircraft. This article carried the rider, "The publication of this article does not necessarily mean that we agree with Captain Goering's present political activities. We are only concerned with his career as an airman." Despite a very full life, editing, writing, broadcasting, and traveling, Johns was also politically active. The international situation of the 20s and 30s was a cause of great concern to him, and the government not only wanted to reduce money to the RAF, but was even talking of disbanding it. In May 1931, Johns wrote a trenchant article about the government's air policy entitled Disarmament, Dementia and Economy. He was not the only one concerned. A speech was given in the House of Commons by Lieutenant Colonel Moore Brabazon, who Johns quoted, in which he said, "The enemy of the Air Force is not across the Channel, it's in Whitehall." His publisher launched a sister paper to Popular Flying called Flying at threepence a copy, and Johns was asked to be the editor. Sadly, his controversial stance resulted in him being called to the House of Commons and being dismissed as editors of both magazines. The start of the Second World War proved the dire prophecies of so many people, including Johns, were absolutely correct, and he found himself very much back in favour. He hoped to get back to flying, but he was now 46, so the Air Ministry appointed him as a lecturer to the Air Defence Corps, which became the Air Training Corps in 1941. During the Second World War, it was recognized what a great recruitment tool Biggles had become, and the Air Ministry asked Johns to create a female counterpart to aid recruitment to the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, and so Worrells appeared in 1941. The War Office didn't want to be left out of all this excellent recruiting methods, and so in 1943 a commando officer, Gimlet, appeared. The effect of John's books is not to be underestimated. Many pilots of the era, myself included, albeit a little later, will tell you that their inspiration to fly started with the Biggles books of Captain W. E. Johns that they read as a small boy. After the war, Johns, who by now had left his first wife, although he continued to support her and their son, and he moved in with another lady who was to be his companion for the rest of his life. His success as a writer was by now well established, and his books, particularly the Biggles series, were being translated into many languages, even German, which sold very well and, amazingly, were widely read by German children. Only in America were the books not popular, being considered too British for their taste. Biggles' stories were also broadcast on the BBC, but it was in Australia that Biggles on radio became a true institution. In the 1960s, Johns found himself, like Enid Blyton and other long-established writers of children's books, accused of racism, elitism, and all the other isms you can think of, with his books being removed from the library shelves. A period of political correctness was about to condemn these books for using the common language of the time and draw conclusions about their authors that were neither fair nor correct. Another distasteful aspect was that it was only after his death, when he could no longer defend himself, that these attacks increased. It was on the 21st of June 1968 at 8:30 in the morning that William stopped mid-sentence whilst writing Biggles Does Some Homework in order to make himself and his partner a cup of tea. He went upstairs to her, sat in his armchair, and suffered a fatal heart attack. He died immediately. He was 75 years old. Although the name he brought into common usage is often used as a parody of times past, Captain W. E. Johns was not just an author, he was a warrior who fought well and fought bravely. With titles like Biggles Goes to War, Biggles Secret Agent, Biggles Defies the Swastika, Biggles and the Black Raider, Biggles and the Gun Runners, and Biggles Flies North, South, East, and West, Captain W. E. Johns' writings motivated generations of boys to seek out the thrills of flying with their tales of adventure, mystery, intrigue, bravery, comradeship, and fair play, all within a world populated by brave pilots and marvelous planes. What more could a youngster have wanted?
So I noticed that not so subtle dig toward the beginning of that, where you said that Biggles is known in most civilized countries.
Yeah,
I got it. I heard it.
you see, you've heard of Biggles, though. I mean, you may
Yeah.
not have read any of the books, but everyone
they weren't-
knows the name Biggles.
They weren't so popular here in the U.S. as far as I'm aware. Anyway,
No, that's right. They at the time they were considered, they didn't really suit your taste, I think.
it's too British.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the kind of the attraction, because it was Britain and Empire, and he flew all around the empire doing his thing, in his biplanes, whatever. And they were great adventure stories. It was the era when many boys grew up to those fabulous, rather now anachronic. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. Help me out. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, or rather,
I know the word you're looking for, but I can't get it either.
yeah, I know. Main man Micah will probably come up with it.
Yeah.
Anachronism. So
Oh, there
if
you
it's
go.
not anachronism,
Anachronistic. There you go.
anachronistic. Thank you, Liz.
Liz.
Yeah, books about boys' adventures. So there were many of them in the UK, and lots of magazines and annuals that you used to get. And Biggles was just part of that fantastic thing.
Yeah. Excellent. And so you mentioned that his books were taken out of libraries because it wasn't politically correct. Is that still the case?
Right.
How do you
I think the books are still in print, and you can buy them on Amazon.
Oh,
Whether they've been tidied up and had the various terms that were common at the time and are now considered quite insulting, removed from them and replaced, I don't know. But Enid Blyton, one of the famous children's book writers, suffered the same fate, and she wrote. She was one of the most prolific authors that we ever had. And I think people, just overreacted a little bit. But there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing as main man Micah points out, this Tom Swift and the Hardy Boys book series, same kind of thing occurred. And then I'm thinking also Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn.
Well, that's exactly what I was going. I mean, I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. You see, I read your books. You didn't read mine, but there you go. Which I think is rather unfair of you. There were some words in there which wouldn't go down well now if you use them in everyday conversation.
Right. Well, very interesting. Thank you, Nick, for putting that one together. And
well, I know it'll please everyone that doesn't come from the States, because we all know about him.
It pleased me too.
Good.
And I'd like to please everybody here in the audience as much as possible. And my original plan was to cover a couple pieces of audio feedback regarding questions about autopilot use and manual flying and that kind of thing. And I think that our resultant conversation regarding them is going to be more than the amount of time we have remaining in this episode. So I'm going to do an audible here and switch plans, and let's switch over to item number 1, which is just a quick one, I'm hoping, from Sealview. He said he gives us a link to an article in Forbes.com, and he said that the title of the article, with the first A380 on the scrap heap after just 11 years, Airbus's bad bet now is painfully obvious. And he said, shocked is an understatement, but I guess many airlines are going for the long and skinny routes rather than hub and spoke, which makes the A380 unprofitable. Did you notice this trend at your respective airlines? Did they recently open up new routes with less demand? Thanks again, and keep up the great show. Tailwinds, clear skies, countless IPAs for the crew, and rivers of well-aged bourbon for Captain Dana. Very nice. I don't know. Rivers, that sounds dangerous to me.
That is very dangerous. That could
So-
lead to liver failure.
So, of course, we all know the A380, huge airplane, amazing technology. It's just that may have not been the proper time for it. Maybe it's before or past its time. But and I think Nick can kind of give us his feelings regarding four-engine airplanes, um, out there in passenger service, kind of getting not favorable attention lately.
Well, yeah, exactly right, Jeff. I mean, the 380 really was there because airports were filling up. The only way to get more passengers in for the same number of landing slots is to build bigger airplanes. And the projections at the time and the fuel costs at the times made the 380 an ideal airplane to satisfy particular routes. Now, sadly, fuel costs rocketed, and that was really the death knell of the 380, because I think it would still be a very viable option for lots of routes, quite specific ones, but lots of them. But of course, any four-engine airplane is now going to struggle to present the same profit margin that a couple of two-engine airplanes can, because you can, fly a long-range thinner aircraft with only two engines. It's cheaper to build, it's cheaper to run, it uses less fuel, so its operating costs are way down compared with something like the 380. So it's going to be ideal for most airlines. Obviously, the Middle East carriers still like the idea. They really do deal in mass transport. So the 380 is going to continue to work for them for quite a while. And I think you'll still see it on some routes for a number of years. But I think Airbus were just too late in the game. If they'd come in perhaps 10 years, preferably 15 years before, and presented a reasonable, when in fact what has turned out to be a fantastic competition aircraft for the 747, then I think it would have been on people's books for a lot longer. Now that it's being pulled out because the costs of maintaining them and running them just don't justify the overheads on the profit margin you're getting. It's very sad, but that's just economics. I don't think there's anything wrong with the airplane, other than the fact it uses too much gas compared with the twins that we see flying around now, and the composite aircraft that are really all aimed at lightweight and low fuel burns. So that's the order of the day, I'm afraid. And the 380 has fallen foul of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nev also makes a good point. Had not ETOPS been such a positive success using twins instead of 3 or 4 engined airplanes, perhaps this may have been a different story as well.
Yeah, very, very good point. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, ETOPS killed off a number of aircraft types. Sadly, the L-1011 included, which was a fabulous airplane. But when people realize that they could have a twin-engine airplane doing the same job, then what's the point of bolting a third engine on and having all that additional cost and expense?
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right. Let's move on to, this is from Tarquin. Dear sweet captains, Jeff, Nick, Dana, and Dr. Steph. It's Tarquin here. I write to you with great urgency as I have some unsettling news for you all. Well, except for Nick. He's safely out of this, unless he's on a USA layover between the fateful dates. The news, or is it the warning I have for you, is that somehow, unbelievably, the village idiot that is Ivor, what a terrible name, has gained access to your country. Calm down. It hasn't happened yet. He's traveling under the cover of his wife. Poor, poor woman. I'm sure if he tried to get in on his own, the authorities would be all over him. But he's gained access, and you need to be aware of his movements. I'll leave a gap here for you to run with all the movements jokes. Any you want to throw in any movements jokes there?
No. It's
It's
a very personal subject, and I'd rather not discuss it on air.
It is. I'm trying to find something that might be appropriate. Okay, there we go. So, Okay, that's enough. Thank you.
Is that Hillel again?
Yeah. Told him to close the door. He never listens. So he arrives under the cover of a Air New Zealand flight. Cunning little so-and-so. I believe it's Saturday, the 3rd of November. Oh, it's like today. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
The unfortunate place is Los Angeles. He's then moving around to avoid detection. So, to my main point, if any ABG members are planning on getting together, be careful. Otherwise, you'll end up with this unwanted element ruining your well planned meetup. Can you imagine it? He'll be swerving around from LA to San Jose, then to Las Vegas, and then back to LA, mostly watching hockey games. So, I suppose away from normal people. He will be departing your fair land on November 16th. So if you're just vigilant between these dates, you should all be fine. If any of you good people happen to bump into the fool, just don't make eye contact with him and don't encourage him in conversation. Heavens, does he love the sound of his own voice? This is something you presenting types would know nothing about. I'm sure you're all very modest types. Yes, we are, Tarkin.
Very much.
We hate hearing our own voices. Okay, so to sum it up, I'll quote the sergeant from Hill Street Blues. Be careful out there. Well, between 3 through 16 November. I wish you all a safe and Ivor-free November. So it's blue juice. It's blue juice skies and chemtrails from Tarquin Wilberforce singing Snodgrass. Or is it St. John?
St. John.
Okay, St. John. I think I've made that mistake before. I apologize. P.S. I'm concerned that my iPad prompted me with my sign-off. P.P.S. I've been sweet-talking your producer. Oh, that's how this made it into the feedback section, I guess, then. Tarquin has been sweet-talking Miss Liz. I see. Okay. All right, so everybody's warned, especially those of you out in California and both Southern and Northern California and Las Vegas, Nevada. Be on the lookout for Ivor. Okay. Thank you for the warning, Tarquin. How much time do we have left? Probably only about 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's not much.
Okay. Let's see. Let's skip to 9. I don't know if this will be too long or not. But again, this is kind of a follow-up on a few episodes ago. We talked about the United Dreamliner that declared a fuel mayday. And Ben Ippolito via Facebook wrote in saying, Mayday fuel is required once you suspect you'll be below minimum reserves. But what may be 10 kilograms or 1,000 kilograms under? It may have also been an accidental mayday, depending on what they set in the computer as reserve. Was it divert fuel or actual final reserve? He puts in parentheses. Declaration of a mayday requires ATC to activate the Airport Emergency Plan, the AEP, at full emergency level. Unlike a PAN, which may trigger a local standby response, which has the ability for ATC to see if the pilot needs assistance on the ground. Good example I had many times at Karatha, or is that the way you pronounce that? Karatha? Was a chopper with a gear issue. Since they can hover and have their engineers put gear pins in, there's actually little call for the ARFF to respond. I'm not aware of the AEP at Sydney, but closing roads may be required for 2 reasons. A level 3 full emergency, which is appropriate to this size aircraft, means you call in lots of external off-airport services to assist. There's a lot of emergency vehicles moving towards the airport. Also, the M1 motorway, aka General Holmes Drive, goes through a tunnel under runway 34 left, 16 right, which is the longest and thus preferred runway for international aircraft, emergency or not. It also avoids having to serve lunch as you taxi all the way back from the parallel. Similar to sterilizing for aircraft, you would not want to be unlucky and have a motor accident and a fire in the tunnel with your emergency aircraft on final. Also, for Trans-Pacific heavies, the options generally, depending on where they track, they use UPRs. What's that? Upper Performance Routes or something like that? I'm not sure what that stands for. Los Angeles, San Diego, Hawaii, Pango Pango, Nandi, Nomia, Auckland, and finally Brisbane. For the Melbourne Melbourne, I guess I'm supposed to pronounce it for the one that's in Australia. Melbourne, as opposed to Melbourne, which is in Florida. Flights, you have options in Sydney and Canberra. Didn't know this was going to be a pronunciation lesson too, but I know how one of Jeff's pet peeves is potable, so he wanted to help me out as much as possible. Okay, great. Thank you, Ben. That makes a lot more sense now. That because at first, when we talked about this this episode or this incident about them like shutting off all surface traffic and everything else, I thought that was a little extreme. But now that he's explained it a bit, that does make sense. Any comments from either of you?
No, I'll
Okay.
have a comment on it.
Well, no, I mean, I get the points he makes, and I agree with a number of them, but I'm not too sure about a captain declaring a mayday based on something that his fuel prediction had churned out. We know exactly what our minimum reserve amount is, and I'm looking at what's actually in the tanks at the time. No captain's going to put out a mayday based on the fuel prediction page. So I think we can forget that possible thing. It would not have been an accidental mayday for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that it would be. Well, we do appreciate your info and your opinion, Ben, as always. And looks like my producer is telling us that it is time for us to wrap it up. And that's sad because there are so many other good pieces of feedback in here that I wanted to play on today's show, but we're just going to have to move them over to the next show folder, and hopefully we'll be able to cover all of them in the next show.
In a few days' time.
Whatever that is. We're not sure. We haven't really talked about it, but yeah, it probably will not be long from now. So with that, you want to learn more about the show, do you? Okay. Head over to airlinepilotguy.com, our website. And there's a lot of information there about the crew and the community, merchandise, coffee fund, and much more. So please do check out airlinepilotguy.com. We also have apps for your iPhone and Android devices on their respective app stores. They're free and they don't have ads in them, so they're not
annoying.
Annoying. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you. And you can also send us feedback through those apps as well, if you prefer. The other way to do it is feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. Just plain old good old email. And on the site, you can also have access to SpeakPipe, which is a way for you to record some lovely audio for our show. Or you can just do it with your device and then attach it to the email that you send to Airline Pilot Guy or feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. And let's see, we're also on social media.
Yeah. And are you going to play something, Jeff? You just look like you're
I'm looking for the thing that I'm going to play after you tell us about social media.
Social media, you can attract our attention on Twitter by putting an APG crew @APG crew along with your tweet, and you can find us on Facebook by the normal Facebook preamble with a Airline Pilot Guy. That's it, Airline Pilot Guy.
That's it.
That's our Facebook page.
It is. And we also have a team on Slack. And Hillel, okay, it's time to come out now. Watch the door.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1, Hotel India 11 Echo 1. And see you in Slack.
Thank you, Hillel. And as always, all of us here wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility. Talons, Douglas.
Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful Guy Fawkes night. See you next time.
We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. I'll be able to cobble something together out of that.
Excellent. I've thought about trying to get in the fact that guising was the origin of trick and treating, but
Oh, really? It is. Well,
it's a Scottish. It started in Scotland, apparently.
Well, so because All Hallows Eve, because the November 1st is All Saints Day, and at Halloween is the I don't know.
It's the tradition of tricking and treating.
Oh, I see.
Comes
I see.
from the
Gotcha.
Scottish guising.
Oh,
which,
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Not the origin of Halloween.
No, not the origin
trick or
of
treat.
Halloween, or the origin of the actual event, which is was turned from a pagan into a Christian festival, as so many were. But yeah,
that is true. Just a reminder, looks like the PTUK will be, is that today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I believe, 10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock in the morning.
Here time, which will be 5 a.m. your time. I don't suppose you're going to be up for that.
Do the 5-hour offset, go back to standard time.
Oh, when does your clocks move then?
Tonight.
Tonight. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it will be 5 hours tomorrow.
Yep.
Which kind of helps me, because when I get to New York tomorrow, I'll be landing an hour earlier without having done anything clever. How does that work?
I don't know.
Neither do I.
I don't either.
It's all magic.
It is. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody.
It's called PFM.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks everybody in the chat room for hanging with us today. Do apologize for the problems that some of you were experiencing. Did it get any better at all toward the end of the show, or were people still having dropouts and buffering issues?
All these American dropouts.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of nincompoops.
Guising. So is that a term associated with Guy Fawkes?
I don't know if it became Guy Fawkes, but guising was just I think a very old English burning of effigies, and it was adopted into the Guy Fawkes night because on Guy Fawkes night we burn an effigy of Guy Fawkes. So I suspect the two merged, but guising was older than the attempt by Guy Fawkes to blow up Parliament, which is what we celebrate the success of the authorities over the evil traitor Guy Fawkes, who had got as far as putting tons upon tons of gunpowder in the chambers underneath Parliament. And really all he had to do was set light to it. He nearly did it.
Almost.
Almost.
And I'm surprised you didn't point out that he was a Catholic.
No. Hey, I was a Catholic, so I wouldn't do a thing like that. No. But now you come to mention it.
Remember the
5th of November.
Oh, I think Micah was trying to play a little bit with today's date.
Was he now?
Yeah. I think he knows it's the 5th of November as well.
Yeah.
It's something that we really don't celebrate here in our country.
No, because you wouldn't really care if Parliament was blown up or not.
I'm not sure. I wasn't living at the time. I'm not sure if that was
what
something.
The hell is that going to do with me?
Yeah.
And I don't like Biggles anyway.
Wow. You know, as time goes on in the show, it just feels like we're not being united at all. We just keep getting separated more and more. I don't know why.
Oh, no, we're good. We're good.
We have fun.
We do indeed. That's why we continue to do it.
Yep.
It's a good thing.
That and all the millions of dollars we're making from putting this out there.
Which reminds me, I need to have a word with HR about my pay rise.
Yeah. Let's talk about that off air.
You really?
Yeah. No. So it looks like for many, the buffering did improve after Plain Tales. Maybe it had a chance to kind of rest a bit and get all caught up with video buffering anyway. I don't know. Mike says Mike Hyper's still getting dropouts.
I think it might be a lot more to do with the local connection they're experiencing it.
That could be, but I think it might actually have to do with maybe several factors.
Well, yeah, of course, it's sending almost instant video, number one, so it's a lot more draw from us.
Ruh, that's our new name for him, right? Ruh. Robert said that I think he has pretty decent bandwidth, and he's been having dropouts. But it did improve after PT. I don't know. Well, anyway, it was an interesting experiment. I just wish that it had been more successful, but you never know unless you try, right? So
exactly. Yeah, and the only way to try is to try it for real, really, because it wouldn't work if we just did it amongst ourselves. Because you sounded great to me all the time.
Yeah, all of you, from what I was getting, I never heard a hiccup. So, Colonel Carl, Mississippi. Dana didn't join the show at episode 90. He made an appearance on.
That's correct.
But we didn't actually start doing a panel type show permanently until I think episode 150-ish, somewhere in there. I don't know exactly when. But anyway, and then it was Steph first, and then Miami Rick, and then for almost a year, it was just the three of us, and then Nick joined us in, I guess, officially in January of 2016. No, 20. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it would have been.
I think it was 2016. And then, of course, Miami Rick, because of his new employment, it was more and more difficult for him to be available for the show. So he kind of dropped out. And Dana joined us permanently in the fall of 2016, I believe. Right?
Yeah, October. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? It doesn't seem like it was that long ago to me.
It's crazy. It's
two
years.
Holy cow.
2 years. I mean, I've been on since what, episode 240 something?
I don't recall. I don't recall.
It's over 100 episodes.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been fun so far. Anyway,
and it continues to be fun.
Yeah. Well, everybody, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their Saturday, whether it be Saturday evening or Saturday morning or whatever time of day it is for you, or if you're down under, maybe it's already Sunday. Is it? Getting close anyway, right?
Yeah, very close.
And maybe we'll see some of you on the PTUK chat tomorrow morning. I'm not sure I'll be up at 5 though, but we'll see.
Sydney is 0234 tomorrow, so it's already 2:34 in the morning tomorrow.
Yeah. No wonder we're not seeing too many in the live chat room here from Australia or New Zealand. It's like, nah, I don't think so.
Middle of the night.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, I think I'll end today's broadcast, and I'll start getting to work putting all of this together and trying my best to make us sound like we know what we're talking about.
Nice one. Oh, and by the way, Robert, thank you very much indeed for hosting us and for killing quite a number of my brain cells. Appreciate it.
It was a great time, Robert. Thank you. The sushi was fantastic. I really like your little place. Its location is awesome. So I look forward to seeing you again when I head up that way.
Just bearing in mind my age, though, could you try and find somewhere closer to ground level next time? Real nice.
What level is he on?
He's on the 3rd floor.
What I was thinking about is if you get a little tipsy like Mr. Captain Nick did, and going down those very steep stairs, I was a little bit concerned, actually.
Yeah, so was I. It had nothing to do with the 10-ton briefcase that I was also carting down with me.
Yeah,
with all my audio gear and computer. That would have been fun if we'd gone arse over tit down there.
Well, I'm glad it didn't happen. So yeah, fantastic time. It was so good to see you, Nick.
It was nice. Yeah, I love that picture we have of us now. So yeah, another one to add to my album.
Yep, it's fantastic. And when you are done editing it, would you be so kind to share it with me?
I don't think it needs any editing. I think I looked at it. It's fantastic. I don't think
we'll share it with us. We can even put it in the show notes if you'd like.
Okay, sure.
I did. But I'll share it again right now.
What I mean is the show notes that I put in the posting of the of the show,
Oh,
which you have nothing to do with.
Oh, okay. Yes, of course.
But I can put
You
it
do
there.
have the photo though, right? From
I don't.
Oh,
Where'd you put it?
I sent it to yeah, it was in the text in APG crew. I'll send it again.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure that I have it here somewhere. I'll just
That's
go
right. I'm
scroll
gonna make it
backwards.
real easy.
Okay.
There you go. It's away via text to you.
Okay. Well,
Shame
I'll
we
be
can't
looking.
share pictures on
yeah, I don't
the
know.
YouTube thing. Actually, that's one thing I think is not quite
Share
there.
pictures of the YouTube thing. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, in the chat room,
Uh-huh.
it would be nice to share
Oh, yeah, it would.
pictures in the chat room.
I
That's
don't know
one thing
why
we
they don't
can't do.
allow that.
Should
No,
I
neither do I.
edit out the logos on here, by the way?
I don't think it's got that much resolution, has it? Don't worry about
Oh,
me.
yeah, it
I've got
does.
plenty of pictures I post with.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You are definitely a handsome man, Nick. You look good. I'm having man envy right now.
I don't say that, for heaven's sake.
How
Your
is it-
uniform is much neater.
How is it that Al is not a moderator? I'll take care of that right now. That's probably not a good idea, but I did it anyway. And Anthony, would you like to be a moderator? Do you have
Do you have the credentials?
the blue
Does he
spanner
contribute
envy?
enough money to the coffee bar fund?
Oh, that's right. I need to take it away. Send us a check for $100 and then you can have a
Yeah, that's right.
and James Devoy, I think I don't even know. Have we met, James? Your name does not look familiar to me. And Anthony, definitely take you up on barbecue in Oklahoma City when I'm there again, if I'm ever there again. I don't know. Yeah, I noticed that too, Robert. James Devoy's Scott's Speak message was flagged as questionable. And then, of course, when Captain Al used the name of the dog, I don't know if you noticed that, but that one was also being held for something by the Google bot. And then it went ahead and pressed forward and cleared it. So it's like Big Brother is watching and listening and reading everything that we're putting in the chat room. So be nice.
Exactly.
Okay. With that, be nice. That's a good policy to everyone. Love everyone. And I'm going to stop the broadcast. And we'll see you again next week.
Bye, folks.
Bye, guys.
Have a great weekend.